Welcome. Welcome to First Parish in Framingham. We are a welcoming congregation, so whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. We welcome you here however you are joining us during this time of worship, whether here in the meeting house or online, or whenever you might be watching this service in the future. My name's David Ortmeyer. I use he, him, his pronouns. I serve as one of the co-chairs of your Board of Assessors. I sing in the choir, and I pour coffee at coffee hour. So please stop by and say hi. And I am your worship associate this morning. Be sure to read the announcements in the order of service. There are many activities happening after worship. And immediately following worship, you are invited to join us in Scott Hall across the courtyard for coffee hour. So please take a moment now to turn your phones or other devices to their quietest settings. While electronic noises can be distracting, we welcome your human noises, especially the sound of your singing and your laughter. So please join in. Since 1701, people have gathered as this community to rest or recharge, to be challenged or affirmed, and those people are just like you. You belong here. Maybe only for the next hour, but we hope for longer, and we are really happy to have you with us. So now I invite you to take a comfortable breath in and out, and continue to take a few more breaths, and to begin to release whatever you need to let go of, to be more fully present to yourself, one another, and the sacred in this time and place. A flame within a chalice is the primary symbol of our Unitarian-Universalist faith. We make this time holy by kindling our chalice flame. We light our chalice this morning to set aside this time as holy. In our human wholeness, may we work to see another's woe, seeing ourselves in the faces of each other, and affirming the worth and dignity of everyone. When empathy is challenging, may our chalice flame give us hope and courage. And now, please rise in body or spirit to sing our opening hymn. It's number 127, Can I See Another's Woe? And then please remain standing as we sing our song of affirmation and say our spoken affirmation.
You may be seated. Just doing the sacred sorting, that is, the things which weigh deepest on our hearts. I'm the Reverend Aaron Stockwell-Wisman. I use he, him, his pronouns, and it is my honor to serve as your senior minister. As I said, this is the time in our service that we share the things which are weighing deepest on our hearts, our milestones, our happy and sad occasions. We share all of this because I know, and I think you do as well, that joy shared can feel as though joy is expanded, and sorrow shared can feel as though someone is sharing our burden. You can submit your joys or sorrows online or at the book at the back of our sanctuary. We intersperse into our sharing the song, "There is a Love." We do this so that our joys and sorrows can be held in song, but also so that you might have a song on your heart that you can pull out of your pocket when you need it the most. I begin with the sorrows of our gathered community. Dave Doucette shares this sorrow. My good friend Bill Duffy passed away unexpectedly this week. I have known Bill for many years. He went through numerous medical issues over the past few years, and he had survived all of that. I was visiting him a few weeks ago and planning to visit him in a few more weeks. His passing was quick and a surprise to everyone. Bill was the type of friend who would lend you a hand, his time and talent to do jobs around the house, like tiling a bathroom or installing railings outside. A brilliant contractor who Dave hired, brilliant engineer who Dave hired as a contractor to work on a project in the mid-90s. I don't think the project would have been completed without him. I have numerous tales of our experiences together and will miss him dearly. Please keep his family in your prayers. And Tom Osfeld has this, which he has checked both a sorrow and a concern, or a joy and a concern. My mom has been hospitalized in the last week, but is now home. And let us now sing, "There is a Love." There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. And these are the joys of our gathered community. Kathy Mello shares this joy. This past week, I was privileged to be the keeper of the traveling chalice. I am told that we're looking for the home for next week, so check it out over in Scott Hall after our service. Marianne and Daryl share this joy. 3 years ago to the hour, and they mean right now, Daryl and I were undergoing surgery for the kidney transplant. Huge thank you to First Parish for so many rides, cards, and meals. Thank you for your support. We are now thriving. Kevin Stern shares this joy. I received a promotion at work and will likely be transferring to a new team in May. A very exciting time with much change. David Rooney shares this joy. My family came to my open mic night last night. Karen G. shares this joy. I am grateful for music, which is so healing to me. Dean Arvidsson shares this joy. My cousin Allie Richmond is graduating from New England Conservatory of Music. Very proud of her. Let us now sing There Is a Love. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding all. We rest in this love. And we will light one final candle for all of the joys and all of the sorrows that remain too great to share, but weigh heavily on our hearts. We're good. I now invite us into a time of deeper contemplation, meditation, or prayer. O God of many names, or no name at all, source of life, ground of our being, the mystery which has ignited the sciences, the creativity which has inspired the arts, who knows us by our true first name, which is beloved. I give thanks for this gathering, the people sitting to our left and our right, these sheltering walls and supportive community. We give thanks for this community which holds so much, deep joy and deep sorrow. May we have the courage to reach out to all those in our midst who are ill or lonely or struggling, those living with disease, those mourning the loss of loved ones. We need all of us to get through this. Our world beautiful is also our world broken. Let us find ways to bring peace to the war-torn parts of our world. Let us find something deeper within us, our deepest wellspring, to bring calm to this world that feels so chaotic, turned upside down. Let us work to be love out in the world. And from time to time, we slip up and trip up with our words. We fumble, we put up walls between ourselves and others. But because we are still alive, still breathing, waking up to see another day, we can always reorient ourselves, bringing us back into deeper relationship with those around us. We are loved and lovable not in spite of our imperfections, but because of them. I say these words and do all things for love's sake. So now we will take a few more moments of quiet to sit in the stillness of this place, resting, listening, praying to ourselves, or simply doing nothing for the next minute. My invitation to you is during another time in the week to find that stillness that you have found here. May this stillness continue to keep us.
Each month, we share one Sunday's offering with a nonprofit that is aligned with our Unitarian-Universalist values. Today, we are inviting you to support the Pink Haven Coalition. The Pink Haven Coalition describes itself as follows. We are a coalition of trans organizers, mutual aid groups, progressive faith organizations, queer associations, and individual justice lovers. We know that liberation is a group project and that no one is free until everyone is free. We proclaim that trans lives are sacred. Our work centers trans lives and experiences, particularly the lives and the experiences of BIPOC, trans, and gender-expansive people. They work together to create networks of safety and direct support for trans beloveds and their families who need to relocate, access health care across state lines, or stay as safe as possible where they are. Your donations to help save trans lives and ensure their safety. The morning offering will now be joyfully given and gratefully received. its name, by Irene Sipos. Thank you. Sitting across the aisle on the B train, I look at the row of weary faces, various shapes, sizes, colors, ages, a horizontal explication of what it means to have woken up many mornings to a brave routine, to leave concerns at home along with scattered laundry and unwashed dishes, to head for the same at work. I picture each of you one at a time, and I try to observe without you knowing, and suddenly I see round, soft faces, no creases in foreheads, no wrinkles like parentheses around the eyes, no downturned mouths, no slumped shoulders. I see the plump babies that you once were. And with that, a rush of hoping that you were affectionately held on generous laps, that you were sung tender songs that you were offered, and that you were offered a bowl of blueberries as initiation to the messy pleasures of this world. I hope that occasionally you reach back, even if only briefly, to recall your beginning self as a visitor, new to the planet, unencumbered and dear.
In the beginning of the pandemic, something that I have been thinking about maybe too much, 5 years ago now. I remember walking back to my car after getting an ice cream cone in Lawrence, Kansas, where I was living. It was one of the simple pleasures in life, and they had an outdoor window that you could stand to get your ice cream. As I was walking back to my car with some delicious ice cream and a waffle cone, a young man stopped me. He had a whiteboard and his phone out, and he asked me if he could take my picture, and then asked also what word would I write on this whiteboard as a message to the world. And I didn't have to think very long before I said that I would write empathy on that whiteboard. In a world that seems so divided, having empathy for others seemed crucial at that point. Now, I have no idea if this actually got posted to social media. I'm assuming, what this young man was doing. But especially in those early days, it seemed like spreading empathy anywhere I could was wise, which is what I have tried to do. Just as a concept, just putting it out into the world. So there was a stationery store also in Lawrence, Kansas. The name was Wonder Fair, a truly wonderful place to be. And they had empathy bumper stickers that were near the cash register. And as soon as I saw one, I purchased it. I am not normally a bumper sticker guy, but empathy seemed to be the right thing. There were a few other people in Lawrence, I am assuming, who also purchased empathy bumper stickers from that store. And as we would see each other driving around town, we'd wave at each other. It was a good feeling. The empathy in me sees the empathy in you. Now, the tailgate that sticker was adhered to was damaged in a parking lot collision sometime during my time in Kansas. And as soon as I got it repaired, you can bet that I had another sticker waiting at home to put on. Literally, when I got home from the repair shop, it was on the car. And several years after totaling that car, I ordered, you guessed it, another empathy bumper sticker. Though someday I am sure I will be the kind of person that has a whole bunch of surreal bumper stickers on my car, for now I tend to keep the back of my car fairly mundane. See, sometimes in funeral processions, I get put right behind the hearse in front of the family as clergy, and empathy seems like a decent message to be sending out into the world in that moment. So why this commitment to a $3 bumper sticker? In traffic, it seems like a good message to share with the world. When I am trying to make that left-hand turn lane onto the Route 9 on-ramp, all of you know exactly what I'm talking about, and there is someone who is honking right behind you who thinks you need to go, and you see that the traffic is not clear, empathy seems like a good message to share to them. When later I have accidentally cut someone off somewhere, probably somewhere else on Route 9, empathy seems like a good message to share. Also a decent message for when others read it, perhaps they are sending empathy to me. Empathy is seeing myself in others while also remembering their inherent difference. We should remember, my friends, that empathy is not sympathy. Dr. Brené Brown, a researcher in vulnerability, empathy, and shame, reminds us that empathy is feeling with people. Empathy fuels connection. Empathy is a skill that can bring people together and make people feel included, whereas sympathy creates an uneven power dynamic and can lead to more isolation and disconnection. So if we have empathy for others, I think we can be motivated to do so much in our world. I've been reading, as you know, the Book of Joy, which is the result of several interviews with the Archbishop Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama together. These fine, holy men talking about joy. In this book, they also speak about the importance of empathy in order to do good work in the world, but also as a coping mechanism for dealing with all of the stress that they feel. They discuss how empathy seems to be the ends of the continuum of joy. Or on one end, on this continuum of joy, you have the Buddhist concept of mudita, which is feeling joy because others are feeling joy. And then on the other side of the joy spectrum, and I love this, on the other side is Schadenfreude, the German concept for feeling joy from others' misfortunes. A different sort of empathy, I suppose. Now, there are some in our world right now who are saying that empathy is a sin. I will not name his name here, but he is an unelected leader of our government who has bought his way into the halls of power. And he has said that empathy is a sin on a podcast recently, saying the fundamental weakness of Western civilization is empathy, the empathy exploit. As he said later, they are exploiting a bug in Western civilization. I think he's talking about us, perhaps, which is the empathy response. Empathy, he says, has been, quote, weaponized. I cannot imagine something that I want to reject more quickly than the thought that empathy is a sin. Do you remember Bishop Marion Buddy's sermon at the National Prayer Service? It was only 2 months ago. 2 long months ago. She preached, "Have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away. Help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here. Our God teaches us that we are to be merciful to the stranger, for once we were strangers in this land. And do you remember the anger at that simple statement? This anger at empathy is a tactic as old as the dictators and authoritarians. Audrey Hepburn once said, "Nothing is more important than empathy for another human being's suffering." Nothing. Not career, not wealth, not intelligence, certainly not status. We have to feel for one another if we're going to survive with dignity. Another quote attributed on the internet to Hannah Arendt, but as Oscar Wilde said, you can't believe everything on the internet. Attributed to Hannah Arendt, but I've had a hard time figuring out who said it, said this: "The death of human empathy is one of the earliest and most telling signs of a culture about to fall into barbarism." Now, there is a term, it comes from the gaming community, called NPC. That's non-player character. What I take from the popularization of this term is that there are people that we should not care about because the player does not control them. It's the game or the game master. We do not care if that character lives or dies. We do not care what we do to that character. And I've played video games. I understand that concept. It might be true in video games, but that is not where we live. We must not let our hearts get calloused and declare certain people as non-player characters. So I go back. To say that empathy is a sin is just absolutely wild to me. I hope it is to you. If sin is missing the mark, which is how I usually translate sin when I see it, and putting distance between ourselves and others and the divine, then there is no possible way in our religion that empathy could be a sin. We say that you should love your neighbor as you would love yourself, or do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We say that all of that is a sin. Impossible. I reject that reasoning. We should be able to see the moral depravity of those who claim this. So why are some people so afraid of empathy? Why is it being weaponized in a weird way? It seems to me that much of the agenda of the people that believe that empathy is a sin, it is being pushed on the basis of us dehumanizing our beloveds. It relies on numerous people othering other people. It relies on us not caring. It relies on us saying that we feel that another life is disposable. We don't care how they feel. The most intense way in for us is to imagine ourselves and our loved ones' faces on the faces of those who are suffering. Think back to the first time I met my nephews, and it was at a soccer game, and they were playing pretty badly because they are children and they are learning how to move through the world. And now thinking about their faces, the joy, the laughter, I can see their faces, their dark hair, their brown eyes, also in the faces of Palestinian children playing football amidst bombs. I can see their faces in the faces of children murdered. And that empathy, that feeling, I can feel and hear the wailing of their parents, their aunts, their uncles in my own throat. The fear of the unknown that families of captives of Hamas must be feeling, that fear must be my fear. The fear of those living in disaster-wrecked areas must be something that I can imagine myself feeling. I must be able to see myself in the faces of those mucking out their homes in North Carolina after a hurricane. I must find some way to understand what a trans person is feeling and going through in this world. I must have my heart open to their stories. It is easy to destroy someone else when you cannot see their face, when you forget that they have loved ones. And there are also ways, that's like the very deepest form of empathy that we might be able to cultivate. We also have lesser ways that we cultivate empathy. And there are ways that we can also miss the empathy miscues. Dr. Brene Brown's research into this says, we can try to be empathetic, but we can fumble. And there's a lot of ways that we can do this because we are human and we are quite inventive. The first is when we show sympathy instead of empathy. This could be a response like, oh, I feel so sorry for you, instead of, oh, I get it. I feel with you and I've been there. Other times a person can hear your story and they can minimize or avoid. Brown explains it like this: we minimize and avoid when we want hard feelings to go away. Out of their own discomfort, this person refuses to acknowledge that you're in pain and that you're hurting. Saying things like, you're exaggerating, it wasn't that bad, you rock, you're perfect, everyone loves you. Why is it challenging for us to feel empathy towards others? I think there are quite a few reasons. The first is that if you are feeling empathy towards others and you suddenly realize it, it can cause your entire world to go tilt. When you imagine a scenario from a different person's perspective. As some of us heard in the family service, a good definition of empathy is when someone calls up to us from a hole. And rather than listening to the person who is stuck in the hole, we can imagine ourselves going into the hole alongside them, or we climb deep down into the hole with them. I think oftentimes as well, empathy can be overwhelming. Now, I know that someone is going to come up to me in the receiving line after church and say some version of this. How do I feel empathy towards someone who believes differently than I do, like someone who may have voted differently than I did? And I have to say, it is not easy. And chances are, if you want to feel empathy for someone like that, it means that you also care about them in some fashion. So that's a good starting place. So how do we cultivate empathy? I think we first must imagine ourselves and the other like the poet from earlier invited us to do, inviting us to see them as a child. Then we can also remember that Brene Brown, and I agree, they both she and I say that empathy is a skill. This means it takes practice. It's fine that we might be bad at it when we start out because empathy takes some time. It takes time to develop our empathy muscles. So 4 steps, according to Brene Brown. The first is perspective taking, or putting yourself in someone else's shoes. Imagine things from their perspective, from their point of view. 2, stay out of judgment and listen. Don't rush into judgment. Focus on listening to the other person. 3, recognize the emotion that the other person is feeling. Think of a time when you have felt similarly. We're not asking you, do you have the exact same experience as this other person? It's about identifying what is the emotion beneath that experience. And 4, communicate that you recognize that emotion. Sharing, understanding builds trust, and connection. Now, I learned recently from a colleague who has had a good career in parish ministry, who is now switching into the academic field, that there is a concept called reading generously. And this is a thing that new academics must learn how to do. Because most of our reading encourages us to take a side. We are taught to read critically, which is important. But one writer, Jesse Hill, who's a professor somewhere in the world, explains the last lecture, recalls the last lecture of a beloved professor. And that lecture included this invitation. We are encouraged to take texts to task, to tear them apart, to read it against the grain at every possible turn. There's a place for this, no doubt, he said, but don't forget how to read with a generous spirit, a spirit of generosity towards the text. Try to see what it is saying to you. Accept it on its own terms, if only to strengthen your own critique. It is nearly impossible to learn from a text if you are not willing to read it in this spirit. So, my friends gathered here, I go back to what has been said in the news and on social media that empathy is a sin. If this is true, and frankly, I don't buy it. I don't buy that empathy is a sin. But if it is, I invite you to sin boldly. I close with this poem by Stephen Jackson called If Empathy is a Sin. If empathy is a sin, then let me be the most flagrant of sinners, unrepentant in my transgressions against indifference. I will sin with the audacity of rain that falls on the deserving and undeserving alike, that does not ask for papers before quenching thirst. If to love without borders is blasphemy, then my body becomes a sanctuary of heresies, each heartbeat an act of defiance. They have made temples of their fear and called it righteousness. They have built altars to exclusion and called it tradition. But I remember how the prophets spoke, saying things like justice rolling down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. Sin boldly then. Open your doors when they say close them. Break bread with strangers, especially when they say turn away. Speak tenderness when they demand cruelty. For there is no revolution more divine than the insistence that suffering matters, that no child is illegal, that no hunger is deserved, that no wound should go untouched. If empathy is a sin, then watch me sin in broad daylight, my feet wide like roots, seeking the deep water of connection. Let them call it transgression. History will call it love. The walls they build between us are not stronger than the ancient art of recognizing ourselves in each other. Go forth, then. Sin boldly. Make of your life a scandal of compassion. There is no salvation more honest than the one that refuses heaven if it means abandoning others to hell. May it be so, and amen. I invite you now to rise in body, rise in spirit, to sing our closing hymn. It's number 128, For All That Is Our Life. trust and love, we come with praise and thanks for all that is our life. For sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain, and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks for all that is our life. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift, we trade our values to build the common good and make our own days glad. And so as we leave this friendly place, let us take the light of love out into the world and use it to brighten our pathways. And when we need to rest or recharge, be challenged or affirmed, may that light guide us safely back. May we hold the light always, and the light hold us always. Amen, and go in peace.